In 2012, David Hamblin, who used to be the quorum president of the LDS when David Levitt was there, was in December of 2012 charged with 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 counts of different charges of sexual abuse of a child.
Mm-hmm.
However, the case was eventually dismissed and dropped because there was just no way to prove anything in that case because the charges were related to events that happened 10 years prior, something in the 1990s.
Yes.
Now, the victim's statement that was released by the Sheriff's Department in 2022 was related to this case.
Yes. So that 151-page report that David Levitt talks about in his press conference
Yes.
is the victim's statement from what appears to be David Hamblin's daughter detailing, we don't know, this has not been released to the public.
Right.
This has not been leaked to the public. Detailing a child sex abuse ring involving, in David Levitt's own words, David Levitt, his wife, and 15 to 20 other prominent Utahns. So, one might ask, how do I know David Hamblin is the therapist? How did I figure that out with my big genius investigator brain? Well, I saw a series of posts by a clearly mentally ill person on Twitter and looked into the details to which they named David Hamblin. And I looked that up, and it does definitely appear from contemporaneous reports that it is absolutely the same person that is being referenced by David Levitt here. But then I clicked on that person's website, and I saw that it was a very strange website run by a man named Nicholas Rossi.
Okay, Nicholas Rossi. Now, again, Nicholas Rossi named the first name named by David Levitt in that press conference, right? He says he's apprehended a man named Nicholas Rossi.
Yes.
Okay, so who's Nicholas Rossi?
Jesus
Nicholas Rossi,
Christ.
a.k.a. Arthur Knight,
Yeah.
a.k.a. Nicholas Alarvidian.
No, I heard a guy pronounce it earlier. Alaverdian.
Okay, Nicholas Alaverdian.
Mm-hmm.
Also, a.k.a. Nick Allen, a.k.a. Nicholas Brown, a.k.a. Arthur Brown. Okay, who is this person? What do we know? Well, so what we actually do know for a fact is that he's a 34-year-old man.
Mm-hmm.
Even that is somewhat contested. He is, by all accounts, a convicted sex offender. He faked his own death in 2020. And a man who says he is not Nicholas Rossi, but who people say is actually, in fact, is Nicholas Rossi and looks really, honestly, exactly like Nicholas Rossi, now lives in Scotland, wheelchair-bound, and with an oxygen mask on at all times.
That is I gotta say, you know when we were talking about disguises in the Philippines Elon Musk episode?
Sure.
Dude, oxygen mask is all-time disguise.
It's
So
really
good.
smart.
So good.
And terrifying.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen
Because
it.
you have but I mean, just like the vibe of like always having that thing on.
Totally.
And he's in a wheelchair. Like there's something very like, he looks like an
picture
X-Men
of him
villain.
and his wife or whatever, his old lady.
Yeah.
That's a fucked up where he's like, God, nothing can tear us apart.
Yeah. Okay, so let's walk through this. A man named Nicholas Rossi, he was arrested in Glasgow back in January of this year, so January 2022. At the time of his arrest, he was shoeless, disguised in a blonde mustache. He was also wearing purple polka dot silk pajamas and what has been described, although I would contest, as novelty patterned socks. Now,
Lord.
this is from some of the reporting at the time of his arrest, and I just want to read this out. Urbane, dapper, and unfailingly polite, he had appeared to be every inch the English gentleman, an eccentric academic in three-piece tweeds. He spoke with such a cut-glass English accent that those around him joked he must have been a member of the royal family. Well, I think that's insane, but something he does have in common with the royal family is that he's a rapist. So actually, Nicholas Rossi.
On the Jubilee, no less, she says this.
We're beyond the Jubilee.
But the Jubilee lasts for a year.
Yeah. Well, she deserves it. So actually, okay, Nicholas Rossi, aka Nicholas Alaverdian. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to be switching through those names the entire time we walk through this, and I apologize,
classic
but
Rossi style.
also it's a great brain exercise for you at home. Think about it. Put it
No,
together.
I won't.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Use your brain. Okay. So he's not British,
No.
despite what the British want. If they want to claim him, I say
All
have
yours.
at it.
You know what? Cheerio. You know.
He's a fucking monster. He's actually American, which makes more sense. He's from Rhode Island. And as a kid, I mean, he says his parents were alcoholics and abusive. I would absolutely believe that given who he is. But he was in and out of child services all throughout Rhode Island when he was a kid. Says he suffered years of abuse. He sued the state for this. But then he withdrew the claim after the state basically agreed to waive a lien in excess of $200K against any settlement proceedings he could have gotten from the lawsuit.
What? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so there was some other, my man had some debts going on.
I think it should be noted too that he was sent to the famous Boys Town facility in Nebraska.
Yes, now Brace, will you
For a period.
explain?
Well, if you would like to know more about that, read Nick Bryan's book on the Franklin scandal.
Yeah.
But not the kind of place that you want to get sent to.
No. At some point, he enrolled in Harvard extension classes, but never actually graduated. Regardless, he billed himself as, quote, Harvard scholar, political scientist, and sociologist.
If you go to, Harvard, I guess that.
This is such a you thing to say.
I'm like, well, is he? I'm a City College of San Francisco scholar.
There you go.
Went there for 6 months.
Okay, back to the rape stuff. So in 2008, he attacked a woman in Dayton, Ohio, pulling her down the basement where he pressed her against the wall, grabbed her, and then starts jerking off. She tries to push him away and he goes, I'm almost done. Don't be a bitch.
Jesus.
So he's a horrible guy. He's later apologizes to her and is like, I couldn't help myself. You're so beautiful. And then is like, don't tell anyone. But instead, smart girl, she goes to the police. He gets convicted of public indecency and sexual imposition for that attack. He files for a retrial.
Oh my God, yeah.
After a MySpace post surfaces allegedly from the victim's account, basically saying that, a post on MySpace being like, I lied, he didn't attack me, like some kind of mea culpa on the old MySpace. He uses that, that to file a motion to retry the case, but the state is like, yo, let's get the computer forensics team on it just to double check some things. And they're like, oh no, actually this post is faked and you wrote it, Nicholas.
So this is actually, I first looked up Nicholas Rossi. I don't know the reason why, but he's the one familiar face in this case to me because I read about this a couple of years ago. And it's just so insane. Like he literally just tried to get away with being like, she just wrote that I'm innocent. And you guys just let it
and he
stay
made
up
it
there.
up.
Yeah, fully made it up.
So it's from this case that his DNA gets put in the system and, he gets registered as a sex offender. So he tries to overturn that conviction. He fails. It's at this point that, many such cases, he becomes basically a men's rights folk hero.
Yeah.
Which is maybe around the time that you heard about him on your forums.
No, well, okay. Those forums are for people who really like video games. Do we discuss other topics there? Yes, we do. But I'm saying it's not the focus of those forums.
Well, he was posting on incel and MRA forums, which I will say Brace does not. He publishes this manifesto type post called My Personal 9/11. He posts it to Our Men's Rights. It's now been since deleted.
He posted on Reddit?
Yeah. But actually, so it's posted to Reddit. The admin from Men's Rights is or the auto content moderator post bot guy is like, oh, you actually name your victim in this, and that's too spicy for Men's Rights. You need to repost it, taking out the girl's name.
Yes.
So again, it's called My Personal 9/11. It's now deleted, but this is a quote from it. Her acts are tantamount to flying planes into my twin pillars of personal success and public service. My goals and our aspirations crumbled to the earth, amassing a huge heap of rubble.
That's really something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like calling, getting convicted of pushing a woman against a wall and masturbating next to her, and then be like, "Don't be a bitch," and then making up a MySpace a post that exonerates yourself, and then getting caught doing that in court, and then calling that your personal 9/11 is the most
To
Reddit
be
shit I've ever
fair,
heard in my
he
life.
did just try to like fake a huge false flag on
Yes,
her.
I guess that's true. He did try to false flag her.
So,
Oh, maybe he's a little more. Maybe his third eye is a little more open than we thought.
okay, in 2010, he's again arrested after police get called to his apartment in Rhode Island. Someone calls in basically reporting a domestic disturbance, saying that a man and woman are arguing loudly. There's like a crying baby. The police arrive at the apartment and they can hear screaming. A woman opens the door and she basically has bruises all over her fucking face. There's injuries on her neck, her arms, her eye is like fully swollen. Rossi, aka Alaverdian, I'm going to say both, neither, both, or one or the other.
Yeah. He's Rossi. Let's call him Rossi.
Okay. He gets arrested. He's taken into custody. But as he's getting taken into custody, he starts beating his head against the back of the cruiser. And he's doing it so hard and he won't stop. The police have to pepper spray him to calm him down.
I mean, this is the thing about Rossi, is he seems like a legitimate fucking psycho. Not like a lot like a psycho killer Navy SEAL like freak that we talk about. Like an actual like mentally psycho
Yeah.
like creature.
Yeah. At one point when he was a kid, there was like a congressional, like literally like a state congressman, I think, who really like took to him because he was this kid in social services, and he was like, you know, maybe I will file adoption papers and like take this kid in.
Yeah.
And a fucking Rhode Island judge like stepped in and was like, you can't do that. This kid is like too sick.
Yeah.
Which like, wrapping my head around that. I don't know.
I mean, these places, I mean, are like, that's the thing, is like a lot of these places that Rossi got sent to are like abuse factories, right?
Yeah.
Like in sometimes more ways than one.
absolutely.
And so, you know, it's gonna fuck you. Like you're lucky if you don't get fucked up from this. But he really he spread that around, you know, like he's taking it in, he's put it on other people.
So he pleads no contest to the domestic disturbance. In 2017, court docs get filed in Utah, basically saying he's under investigation for harassment, kidnapping, and assault, occurring in not just Rhode Island and Utah, but also Ohio and Massachusetts between 2007 and 2019. The incident in Utah is from 2008, and that's when his ex-girlfriend says that Rossi came over to her home in Orem, fucking Utah ass name. That actually sounds like Orem sounds like the name of like a Utahn.
Orrin Hatch.
Yeah, but it's Orem.
Orem. Well, that's how you say it with a Utah accent.
Okay. Rossi is like, hey, come over. I'm going to give you the money that I owe you because I owe you a lot of money.
Okay,
apparently.
well, all right. Sometimes guys owe some women money, all right? You know, it's...
Well, instead he rapes her.
Okay.
Then he basically tries and bars her from leaving his apartment.
Yes.
There's another police report filed in 2010 by a woman who said that he brought her to his apartment and then wouldn't let her leave. Then another woman in that same year, who he also invited to his apartment, tried to leave when it got obviously like very weird and was physically stopped. Rossi said he would only let her go once she paid him back the money he spent on dinner that night and testified into a camera that she wouldn't pursue any legal action against him, saying the money she gave him was for therapy and for him due to her violent actions and her sexual addictions. Which is like the fucking, such a fucking Reddit ass men's right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Fucking copy pasta
Testify into a fucking camera.
So crazy. So basically in the Utah court filings, they said that all of his crimes follow the same pattern. Inappropriate contact ending with him threatening either to hurt himself or forcing himself onto the woman, telling the police that she was the one who victimized him.
Yeah, I mean, that seems what he's done in literally every single case here, is that like he does something really fucked up, and then like either goes crazy and like tries to like blackmail or extort or somehow like, I mean, you know, like he's talking like make a woman testify into a camera, or you know when he gets actually arrested by the police, banging his head against the fucking yeah. I mean, the guy is a slime ball.
Yeah,
but like
he's
beyond
a
slime,
piece of
he's like a
shit.
pathological slime ball.
Yes. He also is like defrauding people left and right. So basically, in early 2020, a woman named Nafsika Antyapas,
Okay.
no idea how to say this woman's name, but she's actually famous. She hired a man named Nicholas Knight Brown to promote the 4th season of her television show on A&E, which is called Plant Based by Nafsika.
Join us on Plant Based with me, your host, Nafsika.
So she hired him to promote this show, which is absolutely makes zero sense.
Why? Doesn't A&E? It's on. Isn't it on TV?
Yes, she found him on one of those like for hire freelancer
Fiverrly?
like yes websites, and he was posing as a man named Nicholas Knight Brown.
So he's just mixing and matching his fake last names.
He's a mix and matcher.
Yeah.
And he's like, for sure, I'll do all of the promotion for the 4th season of your television show on A&E, which is called Plant Based by Nafsika.
I mean, it sells itself. That's basically no work at all.
And she's like, great, you seem totally legit.
Yeah.
Gives him $100,000 a year salary.
$100,000? I'm sorry, plant-based? What?
Yes.
Just to promote it?
Yes. Now, he does nothing.
All right. Yeah. Wow.
And she's like, wait a second, where's all the stuff you promised me? He goes silent. That same year, he starts telling people that he's been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Yes.
And a month after he starts telling people that, local newspapers start reporting that he's died. There's even like an AP, like the AP published an obituary entitled Child Welfare Activist Dies of Cancer, with comments from family members. There was like a note about his ashes being spread out in the sea.
Oh my God.
And that his final words were, and this is quote, "Fear not and run towards the bliss of the sun." That press release and those notes and quotes and all of that was sent to the papers by something called the Office of Nicholas Alaverdian.
Jesus Christ.
But none of that matched up with any actual death records. Even though this was all out in the papers.
In the AP.
In the AP, all this stuff. Like, no one could actually verify anything. And here's the thing. At the time of this death, this dude was actually being investigated by the FBI for fraud. And Rhode Island had issued a warrant for his arrest because he had refused to register as a sex offender.
Jesus Christ. So this was fake news published by some of our most reputable news organization obituary sections?
Yes.
Wait, I'm sorry. You can just do that?
I don't know.
So if I just like write a letter to like the Tampa Bay Times Herald and I'm like,
no, but you don't have a footprint in Tampa Bay.
No, but I'm not even talking about me, but I'm like,
no, I was going to say maybe we should try and fake your death.
No, dude, we should try to fake someone's death that we don't know. Like, we should pick a stranger to torment.
No, because then the stranger can just show up and be like, paper, I'm not dead.
No, we'll be like, that's an imposter.
We'll hide you for 10 years.
10 years?
Well, you got to commit to the bit.
Well, commit to the bit? But I don't want that. What's the payoff?
Well, we see if it works.
I guess, you seem
You got to be scientific about these things.
Yeah.
There's a method that you have to follow.
Can we say I did something cool? Like me and Machine Gun Kelly were like, I don't know, snowboarding?
I think it should be prostate cancer.
Prostate cancer? Dude, I don't even know what a prostate is and you know that. Because I don't know why guys would even have them and women don't if they're in the butt. Women got that shit too. It's fucking...
Well, this didn't work. This plan didn't work for Rossi because the state keeps looking for him and the feds, and they had a couple of clues. So his foster mother, who Rossi had defrauded by opening up a bunch of credit cards under her name and racking up like $200,000 in debt, she read the obituary and was like, that's weird. This is exactly how my foster son used to write. And is like, no, he wrote this about himself. Then his lawyer is like, man, it's weird that Rossi announced that he had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and then died right after I told him that the FBI was investigating him.
Yeah, you don't generally. I mean, that's that's coincidences. Stranger things have happened.
The other thing is that the website Wikipediocracy tracked down multiple accounts that were editing the Nicholas Alaverdian Wikipedia page after his death. And they were convinced that it was Alaverdian himself, because at one point they even tried to replace the photo that's on Wikipedia of him with a different man.
And I gotta say, this guy, for being a guy who's mostly famous for just getting in trouble,
yes,
has a extensive Wikipedia.
He obviously has like managed his own Wikipedia because it's all about billing him as a child's rights activist.
Yeah. I guess that's true. Yeah.
But it not a lot about the whole rape thing.
I mean, it mentions it, but
well,
you're
because
right.
now, cut to, Rossi is finally arrested. Now, where is he arrested? He's arrested in the COVID ward at Queen Elizabeth University Hospital. They basically were able to identify him as Rossi, even though he continues to maintain that he is not Nicholas Rossi, that he's not Nicholas Alaverdian, by tattoos that U.S. cops had photographed during his initial arrest back in like 2008. He had I guess he has like scars on his body from him like trying to remove his tattoos himself. Like, this man is committed.
Man, just get another tattoo over it.
He attends a bail hearing like from his COVID bed, and the bail, like a Zoom bail hearing, and the fucking very stupid British justice system is like, we're going to give you bail. You seem okay.
Yeah. You seem like a good bloke.
Yeah. So at that point, he just runs away. He doesn't show up to the next hearing in Edinburgh. They finally find him in Glasgow. That's when they take him in, when he's in the wheelchair, in the silk pajamas, with the in my opinion, novelty print socks. And he still, again, maintains that he is not Nicholas Rossi or Nicholas Alaverdian, but is in fact a man who's British named Arthur Knight.
And so that's the wild thing. I mean, so if you look at old pictures of Rossi and new pictures of Rossi, he looks very different because he's gained quite a few pounds in an effort to disguise himself. He also wears a mask, an oxygen mask.
Oxygen mask, not COVID mask, like full on, like, with the tank.
Oxygen mask.
He's fucking blue velveting this shit, man.
Absolutely.
Get ready to fuck! You fuckers, fucker!
But the wildest thing is, like, he is so clearly is Nicholas Rossi.
Yes.
But he's still being like, I'm just a British chap named Arthur Knight. Like, I don't know what all this is. But Arthur Knight hates David Levitt.
So here's where it gets even weirder, because it's alleged that Nicholas Rossi actually runs a kind of, let's say, Bob Dylan truther site.
That is absolutely the way to say it. Yes.
Now, Brace, can you explain to our dear listeners, as our in-house rock and roller, what a Bob Dylan truther site would entail?
So they're like, is Bob Dylan's song about Israel Neighborhood Bully actually one of the greatest songs of the 20th century? It's so fucking good. And by the way, it's just, if you read the lyrics to Neighborhood Bully, you're like, this man is probably a once in a million years poet. I mean, it's just incredible. No, there was, and I remember when this happened, and it was like, it made headlines for about 2 days, and then it got dismissed pretty quickly. But Bob Dylan was accused by a woman. And I haven't looked it up since I read about it originally, so this is from memory. Bob Dylan was accused by a woman of having raped her when she was 12 in the 1960s.
Yes.
I believe at the Chelsea Hotel.
I think that's right.
But it turns out that when she said that it happened, Bob Dylan was actually
in the UK, I believe. Yeah.
When the famous documentary about him was being made.
Yeah, so it's alleged that Nicholas Rossi basically posted abusive content online about that woman.
Yes.
She's identified in the court documents only by the initials JC. She's pursuing her case. She's still pursuing the case, I believe.
She is?
Yeah,
Wow.
against Dylan in the U.S. Her lawyers say that they tried to track down the person who was publishing her identity online.
Yeah, because it wasn't anywhere.
It wasn't anywhere. Like I said, the only way she was identified was as JC in the court documents. But somehow, like her full name was published online. They were able to trace it to a website. And her lawyers have been trying to track down and figure out who this person who was posting all this stuff was and where they fucking got it.
Yeah.
Now, their lawyers, again, they still have not been able to figure out who it was. The only way they were able to connect it to Rossi was after they were approached by our favorites, the Daily Mail.
Oh, hello.
Her lawyers are like, we stopped trying to figure out who was posting all this info because actually, weirdly enough, all of the postings stopped back in September of 2021, which is coincidentally, little gumshoes out there, the same time that Nicholas Rossi got sick with COVID and was put in the COVID ward in good old England.
Interesting.
Now, when I say it gets weird, this is where it gets really weird. We don't actually know what that website is.
Yeah.
Because, again, in an effort to protect this girl's name, this woman's name, who was alleging that Bob Dylan assaulted her, none of these, even the tabloids, and especially the British ones, because they got to be real careful about the old gavel coming down on them. They're not publishing anything that can link to actually her name. They're not trying to publish any victims' names or anything that could be victims' names.
Yeah.
Potential victims' names, whatever.
Especially with a man as deep of pockets as Bobby Dylan.
Yes. Now, we don't know what the website was that Nicholas Rossi was running. I'm sure that we really could dig into it way more than we did.
Yeah.
And find it. But when I mean the papers aren't publishing it, I'm trying to say that it's not out there.
It's not out there, no.
Okay. However, let's leave England for a second. Let's go back to Utah. When the Utah sheriff announced that they were reopening an investigation into the ritual sex abuse case, immediately that day, which I believe that day was May 31st, correct?
It was, yes.
A website named Zeus News posted, I swear to God, a podcast episode on SoundCloud that has since been deleted, naming David Levitt as one of the guys in the abuse case. Zeus News is not just a SoundCloud podcast website.
No.
It is not just a news blog website, though it is both those things. It is also has forums. And it has a forum that posts a lot about Bob Dylan.
That's right.
Now, let's circle it back. If it is in fact Nicholas Rossi running Zeus News, and I believe that it is, as I've listened to the podcasts.
Crazy voice.
Crazy voice.
Yeah,
Let's insert the crazy voice.
It's insane, yeah.
Right here.
Airports around the world are seeing chaos like never before. Families are sleeping on floors. Flights are being cancelled in waves. And holidaymakers are standing in endless queues.
So it sounds like it is. How did he, Nicholas Rossi, the man who is being charged and trying to be extradited to Utah by David Levitt, how did he get information about David Levitt that he leaked to literally nobody's reading Zeus News.
No.
Nobody's listening to Zeus News. There's 6 listens on the podcast. The only way I found that was that it's linked on to Twitter on a bunch of posts, some of which are linked in the replies of Adam Herbets, a Fox News affiliate.
So
how did he get this?
yeah, I mean that is a good question because obviously this report is out there, right? And your first instinct would be like, well, the sheriff who's arresting him is.
But why would the sheriffs be talking to this psychopath rapist? I mean, okay,
Well,
clearly,
yeah.
sure,
So there's
okay,
something funny going on
but
there.
also, really,
Well, I listened to yesterday another podcast which was an interview with David Levitt all the way back in April on an East Coast radio show. It turns out that Nicholas Rossi, officially Arthur Knight's lawyer,
Yeah.
is a man named Craig Johnson, who's currently in Scotland right now helping Arthur Knight, who he says, I don't think this guy's Nicholas Rossi, fight extradition.
He still, by the way, maintains
That
he's
Arthur Knight. Yeah.
He doesn't have tattoos. He's not Nicholas Rossi.
No.
Just fully
It's just, he's just denying.
denial.
And I've actually seen zero people other than us make this connection. Although there's not a ton of people looking into this story. But
Well, maybe they will now that we've solved the case.
now Johnson, I think, knows a thing or two about sex crimes. And in fact, he might know a thing or two about a specific alleged sex crime that took place in 2012 involving a therapist named David Hamblin, in which a victim's statement names 15 to 20 prominent Utahns, including David Levitt and his wife. How would he know this? Because he's a long-serving former prosecutor with the Utah County's Attorney's Office, and in 2010 was made a member of its Special Victims Unit, the same Special Victims Unit that David Levitt disbanded in 2020.
Cue the music.
So Johnson actually clashed with David Levitt after Levitt assumed command of the office in 2018. According to his own letter, which I read on Scribd, detailing the reasons for his resignations in 2020, because that's when he was fired / forced to resign, he quit for two reasons. He didn't agree with Levitt's disbandment of the SVU, and that Johnson was, himself, due to philosophical differences, well, I phrased that weird, but imagine I didn't phrase it weird. Due to philosophical differences with Mr. Levitt, I was no longer able to fulfill commitments I made to law enforcement chiefs and officers while performing my duties as the Utah County Attorney's Office Director of Law Enforcement Relations. Despite being ordered to do so, I refused to disclose the names of police chiefs and police officers who were contacting me with concerns about Mr. Levitt's practices and case resolutions. That insubordination ultimately cost me my job. Levitt's office, however, claims, and this was the claim that was repeated in the press, they fired Johnson and two other prosecutors for accepting free tickets to a Utah Jazz game from a defense lawyer they had active cases against.
The same Utah Jazz that just fired their coach, Quinn Snyder, and is about to trade the sickly Frenchman, Rudy Gobert.
Oh my God. This gets deeper with every shovel full of dirt. So now he's Nicholas Rossi's defense lawyer. Levitt says in that April interview with Gene Valicenti, an East Coast radio host.
Now there's a non-Utah name.
There we go. Gene Valicenti. Let's say Gene Valicenti.
Feels good to be home.
Levitt says that it's no coincidence that Johnson is Rossi's lawyer and that Johnson was a plea deal guy and that prosecutors, including from his own office, are trying to take him down.
Interesting.
So, what we have here, to sort of sum it up for you, I know it's a little difficult, but bear with me, is the DA of Utah County was implicated in an unreleased report, 151-page victim statement that was taken in 2012 by his predecessor. The case was dismissed. It was against David Hamblin, who did lose his license, did lose his wife, and did lose his membership of the Church of Jesus Christ and Latter-day Saints. That report somehow made its way into the hands of Adam Herbates.
Herbates!
From Fox 13, the local Fox News affiliate of Salt Lake City, or Utah. And somehow that same report made its way all the way across the Atlantic into the hands, or at least knowledge of the report, into the hands of Arthur Knight, a.k.a. Nicholas Rossi, a.k.a. Nicholas Salaverdian, a.k.a. Nicholas Brown, a.k.a. Nicholas Brown Knight, a.k.a. there was another one, right?
Arthur Brown Knight.
Arthur Brown Knight, whose defense lawyer, who's somehow being paid to go across the fucking
Makes
world.
no sense.
Makes zero
No,
sense.
There's no money there.
who was a prosecutor who clashed with David Levitt in his office and who was a former member of the Special Victims Unit during the time when this investigation happened, and was fired by David Levitt in 2020 for accepting tickets to a Utah Jazz basketball game, which they definitely won because they're probably the best team out there. Way better than Warriors. Right before an election that happens in late June 28th. I don't have the number in front of me, but I said it earlier. In which David Levitt is running against Jeff Gray, who every single person we've named, save David Levitt and David Hamblin, obviously, has endorsed. So this is a classic case of Utah politics as usual, in which rat fucking is going on from the sheriffs, from the damn prosecutor's office itself, from former prosecutors, from the media, but also it is, I will say, within the realm of possibility that David Levitt did indeed engage in ritualistic sex abuse and possibly ate a baby.
Wait, I just got it. Is the soaking because it's on your pants?